Welcome back to my channel. As always, I'm Brad. Thank you so much for joining me again for another episode, and thank you so much for subscribing. If you're new here, I'm an artist and an animator with over 20 years experience, and on this channel we talk about becoming better artists and better visual storytellers overall. From figure drawing to comic book and character design tutorials to software reviews. So please subscribe, hit that like button, and comment and let me know if there's something you want to see me cover. In today's video, we're talking about posing and foreshortening for characters. Now, let's assume you've written a cool original story, and you've already worked out your character designs and your overall design style. So now, you want to tell that story visually. Maybe it's a cutscene for a video game, or a storyboard for an animated project. Maybe it's a comic book or a webcomic. Your characters are your actors. And the posing? Well, that's the acting. On screen, I've drawn several simple action poses, very rough, very loose. Then after that, I'll add my structure shapes with cubes and cylinders, just to make sure that all my proportions are correct. As a general rule, superhero comics tend to exaggerate and push the posing to be much more dramatic. But I would argue that it's a posing rule that should apply to all types of comics or artistic storytelling. For example, two people having a conversation, make it dramatic. A person sitting in a chair, make it dramatic. Make it cool. How do we do that? Well, the first step is finding our line of action. Let's look at that. A line of action, or a flow line, is our quick and loose gestural lines of movement. It's our initial indication of our character's action pose and movement. These red lines indicate my initial lines of action for this pose. Let's try another one. Here's a drawing of Conan in a typical action pose. Now here is the line of action going through. By starting with a line of action like this, it quickly allows me to find the movement and motion in the pose. Now let's shift gears a little. What if there is no movement needed for a scene or a pose? What if it's just a guy sitting in a bar? He's sad, he's defeated, and he's reflecting on the mistakes of his life. I know, dramatic, right? Well, in that case, instead of selling the action or movement, we want to sell the mood and emotion. And we can do that with body language. Pose how the character is feeling. Now, I want to set up 3 different examples of our sad guy sitting at a bar scene. Here's our first example. It's a loose, rough drawing of a guy sitting at a bar. I think the pose works. I think it's a simple drawing that conveys the information that I want it to convey. But is there anything else that it's telling us? He certainly doesn't seem sad, upset, angry, or distraught in any way. He's just a guy sitting at a bar. Now, let's look at our second option of sad bar guy. I think it's better. I think it conveys a little more emotion. Clearly, he's already had a couple at this point. Even though there's no facial expressions or dialogue to tell us what he's thinking or how he's feeling, the pose by itself is giving us all the information that we need. Now, let's take what was working with pose number 2 and push it and make it even more dramatic if we can. We can always do better. This time, I'm lowering the angle quite a bit, and I'm using a little bit of foreshortening by pushing that glass right up front and making it really big, making it the focal point of the scene. This guy is here to drown his sorrows. This version not only gives us the information we need, but it's a more dramatic angle and has better composition. Therefore, it's just more interesting to look at. Now, let's compare the 3 poses together. Which one do you think works best? Which one is your eye drawn to? If you said pose number 3, you win. On to foreshortening. What is foreshortening exactly? Well, if you ask Jack Kirby, the godfather of modern superhero comic book art, foreshortening is Captain America punching you in the face through the comic pages. Or rather, a very dynamic action pose in perspective, giving it tons of depth. The extreme foreshortening established by Jack Kirby has been a staple of superhero comics from the 60s all the way to today's modern comic art. So, how do we draw our own poses with extreme foreshortening? Well, by putting everything in perspective, essentially. Let's look at this mannequin figure I created at the beginning of the video. Now, let's take a closer look at his arm. It's basically 2 cylinders and then his fist. Let's tilt that upper cylinder to be pointing directly at us. It's basically just a cylinder in slight perspective. Now, we'll stack the forearm cylinder on top of that one, again to be pointing directly at us. Just another cylinder in perspective. And now we'll add the fist, which is basically just a cube shape in perspective. Let's reconnect this arm to our figure. We have to do a little size adjusting, but I think it works. Adding muscle anatomy to a foreshortened arm in perspective can certainly be tricky, but I would suggest to keep it simple and focus on the main muscle areas, the shoulder, the bicep, the elbow area. Don't get lost in highly detailed anatomy. I think that about covers it. I'll close with this time lapse I did of Rogue flying in perspective with foreshortened fist out front. So I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you're going to take it and draw some very cool poses with dynamic foreshortening. So thank you so much for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. I would be forever grateful if you could hit that like button and please leave a comment and let me know what you think. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one and keep drawing.